Hey, Ronnie.
Hey,
How you
Jason.
doing, buddy? Hey,
Pretty good.
welcome
How are you?
everybody. I'm tired all the way. I'm like exhausted,
You guys
honestly.
have had a crazy week.
I have been so busy. First of all, I'm Jason White. This is Ronnie Leatherman. This is Into the Fire, coming to you live from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am super, super stoked about tonight as I am the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about this guest because this is somebody that I really wanted to bring on for, man, I first talked to her years and years ago, but she's going to be great. I wanted to make mention just real quick that I wanted to give a shout out to a few of the other shows that I think you really should check out if you're really digging this kind of show. I would check out iDetective. I mean, they put out a show that's with Chris DiPerno and a couple of others on there, and they put out a show. It was either last week or the week before that about human trafficking that was incredibly powerful. It's super heavy, but I think it definitely deserves a lot more looks than it got, and it's definitely. I don't even want to get any further than that. It's super, super heavy of a show. Also, check out Briefing with the Chief. I think that's a really informative show. Ronnie, I don't know if you've checked that out or not, but he was a
I haven't
deputy
seen that one.
chief. Yeah, he was the deputy chief with the LA County Sheriff's Office. I haven't given him a shout out yet, and he deserves one because really he started this when basically the week before us, and he started the same time as Wiretap. So the three of us, Wiretap, Briefing with the Chief, and this show all started at the same time, and I think you're getting a lot of bang for the buck when you get all three of us, and it's just different types of formats, but exceptionally great content, and it's really good. I'm super, like I told you, I'm super tired, man. I just did make mention I had a murder that happened on New Year's Day, and I really didn't talk in detail about that, but we were able to make a couple of arrests on that finally today, and it happened to be a murder of a 12-year-old. So I'm super stoked that we've got at least two people behind bars tonight, and it's been an incredibly long day. That's my contact information if you want to reach out. And I wanted to this is kind of fun too, Ronnie. Anything going on in your world? Because I wanted to mention a couple of other things that are cool.
Oh, pulling stats for people and doing reports. I'm going to help auto theft on some stuff next week, and
Cool.
another deal for SID. I was helping them on some stuff this week also.
Okay, this is super hot off the press, man. I never even told you about this, Ronnie. I don't think I did anyway. I can't remember. But if you've ever, I gotta get this just right. All right, this is going to be a free promo for this. This is Tony. I'm probably mispronouncing this, but Tony Chichera's Creole seasoning. Ronnie, have you ever seen this?
I have
and
not.
I'm not getting paid. I'm not getting paid to do this. All right. But the reason why I bring this up, listen, this is funny. So basically, Doug Chicheris, who is this company, he's with this company. He's like the grandson of the founder, and they're out of Louisiana. He's actually an avid viewer of this show and loves it. He actually reached out and messaged me, and it was kind of a connection with Hy-Vee. We know Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
Me and you are kind of friends with the Hy-Vee Corporation, and he reached out.
Right here, I'll give a shout out to them. I got
there you go.
my koozie right here.
And listen, I got to say this. Ronnie and I are not, Ronnie didn't even know I was going to mention that. But I told Doug, I said, listen, Doug, because he's like, I'm going to come up there. I'm going to cook you something, but the weather's terrible. Us in Louisiana, us people down this way, we don't do well in the cold. So he goes, I'm going to cook you some Cajun stuff. How cool is that to get one of these guys coming from this company that may come up here and do that? And I think that's pretty cool. And I told him I'm going to give him a shout out.
Well, where did you get that at?
I got this out of my cabinet. I told him, I said, listen, I use this stuff constantly. Every time I'm going to go to my cabinet, I'm going to be grabbing this stuff. I'm going to be thinking of you. So you just know that. And I use this every time I'm cooking something. So I use it all the time. And I'm just telling you, if you've never used this stuff, it is great. I told him I'd give him a shot. He didn't even ask. I just said I'm going to do it. So anyway, but that's pretty cool because I've never met somebody that actually their name is on something that you buy at the store. So that's kind of neat. So anyway, aside from that, I also wanted to give a special shout out to another person, and it's Aisling Slim from North Ireland. Throw her picture. There you go. Listen, this is kind of the fun part for me. We haven't had time in the last couple of shows because we had to jump right into it. But I have to make mention of of Aisling. It's actually, it looks like Aisling, but she pronounced it Aisling, and it's Aisling Slim, and she lives up in Northern Ireland. A super fan, and I've got a lot of people that follow me from Ireland, and I have to say this, and I'm not saying anything that the other people from Ireland haven't risen to her level, but I'm going to tell you, she's been messaging me for years now, and one of her friends brutally got murdered, and I hate that. But she's messaged me for years, and if I had a president of my fan club, or in the country of Ireland for that matter, and she's specifically in Northern Ireland, which is actually another spot of it. That's where Belfast is, Sons of Anarchy kind of world. And it's not Dublin, it's Belfast, up where the Titanic Museum is and stuff. But I had to give her a special shout out because she's just super cool. And Aisling, we may even have you on the show in the near future. I know we've talked about that. She thought it would be a great idea, and I think it might be kind of cool too. I don't know what you think, Ronnie, but
no, I think it would be good, and
might be worth a try.
Yeah, and that's another. I think it would be a good idea, and that's another example of. Obviously, most people know us because of the first 48, and you have a infinitely bigger social media presence than I do. I don't have any, but you've told me for 10 years how many people from all over the world have reached out to you. From you pick a continent, pick a country, there's people who are watching, and it's great that people are seeing hopefully the good work that we've done, and you guys continue to do.
Yeah, and continue. When you signing up on here, I see Jackie's back in the house. Love it. Sally, we love that. I think it's super cool. And this next guest, she's like, "Oh, this is great. I thought about doing a podcast, etc." And I'm talking about Jody Ewing that's going to be coming on in a minute. And I got to tell you, Jody, when you come on here, I got to remind you, this is not a podcast. This is big time. This is a radio show on KGRA digital broadcasting. This is a step above. I think it is. I don't know. I'm making it a step above. What do you think, Ronnie? I'm
going to roll with however you want it. That's what we're going to roll with.
All right. So anyway, that's basically that. And I also want to finally mention Amanda Curran, who, sometimes we forget to mention her. She's the lady behind the curtain that is throwing all these cool things up there to make it look really professional and whatnot, up from Nova Scotia, Canada. So, man, it's going to be a great show tonight. I'm super stoked, and let's get to it. Unless you have anything else. Anything else?
I'm just want to reiterate what you said is Jason is serious. He has talked about this lady and her website I started working with him back in March of 2012 when I went to Homicide, and shortly after that, he was talking to me about it, and all the time, "Hey man, you got to see this. You got to see this website. You got to see this website."
Yeah, and we really do, and this is fun for me because I'm going to be able to introduce this, and I'm going to say this, Jody, you sent me kind of a bio. I'm gonna just read super briefly here. You'd sent this to me a minute ago, and it was basically, let me just put it this way: the bio is this. She is I'm pretty sure she's an author. She's an award-winning individual that's won multiple awards from various places. She designed this site, and this site that we're about ready to talk about is the Iowa Cold Case site. If you are a sleuth, you're an armchair quarterback of true crime. If you're any of these, I think you're in for a real treat. So let's bring Jody in. Just bring her in, and there she is. Thank you for joining us. You already know
Thank you for having me.
And Jody, you know I'm a super fan of yours. I reached out to her. She estimated it's 10 years ago. It may have been 10 or 11 years ago, probably. And I actually just did. I reached out to her because I actually had a case years ago that the individual lived up in Iowa. And I was looking at every cold case site in this country. And then I came across your site, and I was absolutely blown away. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, well, first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jody.
Well, I had worked as a journalist for about 20 years, and going from Sioux City Journal over to the Weekender, which is an arts and entertainment news weekly. And my boss had me doing series type cases, like an author interview series, and I was interviewing musicians, and it was really great. And then he asked me about doing an cold case series on unsolved homicides from the Sioux City Sioux City's right there at the tri-state area, Nebraska and South Dakota and Iowa. But I said, sure, even though I was thinking, I don't know of really any unsolved murders or cases in Iowa except Jody Huisentruit and Johnny Gosh. And I was just stunned what I found out, how many cases were in Sioux City. There were around a dozen at the time, I believe. And as soon as I spent almost 3 months doing research before my first story in that series appeared, which was a triple homicide. And as soon as it came out, my phone was ringing nonstop with people saying, are you going to feature my dad or my sister or my brother? And I was like, we can only do 6 in this series. But they were telling me all about them. And so kind of in the back of my mind, I started forming an idea of, well, it shouldn't take that long. I could just do up a website and list all of the Iowa unsolved cases. I thought it would take about a year, and then it would just kind of be a static site. It didn't turn out that way at all.
Famous last words on that one.
Yeah.
So how many cases do you actually have on this thing? Both missing person and then homicides.
I think around 750 right now. But I have another folder that's one for missing persons and one for unsolved homicides that still need to be put on there. And that's over 100. It takes a while because I don't want to just put something really short, like this person went missing on this date and this person was killed here. And if you have any information, call this number. I like to give some depth to their life and let readers know what kind of a person they were, because I think that makes them care more.
How do you get that information?
The major cities, like for instance, the Des Moines Police Department, I call them every few years and say, tell them I need a new list. Okay. And they send me their whole list of unsolved homicides, with the exception, they don't include like the last 5 years. And I know sometimes it can take that long for a case to go cold, but a case can go cold in 8 or 9 months too. But so the bigger cities, I have contacts and get lists from them. But, there's more than 800 towns, cities, some just a population of 1,000. And how I don't even know the names of all of the towns or cities in Iowa. And so once the site went up, then people would contact me and say, hey, we lived in Perry, Iowa, or wherever, and my dad or my mom, whatever's an unsolved case you don't have on your website. And I tell them, well, that's because I haven't contacted that sheriff or that police department yet. So it's a lot of it's word of mouth.
Hey, Amanda, throw up that. All right, so basically, throw up one of that first slide, kind of like showing the '90s. That first slide, yeah, like this. And so when you go to this site and it's Iowa cold cases, just type that in there. I mean, you can't get any easier than that. When you get there, what I love about this is that you have all these areas on the top part of it, and you can click on homicides, and you can go down. They have a case in there. I think is the oldest one back to 1847. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. It was a police officer. I can't remember if I added the information on that one yet.
But what you can do no, go ahead.
No, they just asked me to hold off on it before I put all the information out there.
Okay. And so when you click on one of these, just just pick one of those deals. Go to like 1970 or for instance, we'll pull one up right quick. We'll pull up Ashley Oakland. And when you go to her and you pick that up, and that's I can't read it. I think it's 2011 is when this happened. And this happened to be an individual that was showing a house and then tragically was murdered there while she was showing this house. Was she a realtor?
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you pull it up, when you see that, you can scroll down and you like right here, you're getting a ton of information about them. And what I love about that is it really humanizes them, even down to news links, uh, media, like newspaper articles, etc. And look at that. I mean, it talks so much more in depth about each one of these individuals. And I have been, Ronnie, how many times, we've talked about this just briefly before. How many times have I basically went on and on and on about how not just the city of Tulsa, but the state of Oklahoma needs to adopt this and go with it. I just love it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, when we started working together in March of 2012, I think is probably one of the times you started talking to me about it. And then I would say at least once a month for the past going on 12 years, you've made at least some type of comment about it. Hey, look at this. They're whatever. You were always talking about it. And I know you have reached out or talked to people within our organization and others talking about how Oklahoma needs one like this, Tulsa needs one like this. And yeah, you're just a super fan of it.
I am. You know what? I'll tell you what, Jody, I've gotten a little bit of traction with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, who every time I'm kind of involved in an organization called the International Association of Identification, and IAI, and so I'm on their board, and I keep bringing it up, going, we have got to get together and figure out how we can do this, and you never know, we may come up with something, but I don't know. The work that you have put into this, I am just absolutely, you are exactly the type of person that I visualize to have on this show, of somebody that is doing something. I just don't know of another site out there that's like it. Maybe anywhere in the world, really. I don't know about it in the country. And I'm not just trying to stroke your ego. I'm just being real. I mean, there's nothing like this anywhere. If you go to our site, there's like a paragraph. I'm not even a paragraph, maybe a sentence about somebody with some nothing photo, but you have actually tombstones and just additional stories, which is just amazing. So tell us more about that.
I was going to say, how much help do you have with this? It can't just be you running this, is it?
I have had some volunteers at different times, and I like everything to kind of be very consistent on the site, where when you go from one case to another, they look, very similar, and just, the theme of the site. And they would take some interest, and some of them, there was one of the reasons I started this is because I know that cases cannot be solved without the media has to put more attention on these cases. Like the anniversary cases, either their birthday, the date of their death, the date they were killed, and where newspapers would run the stories about them. And that's what helps, people will, oh yeah, I remember that case. And there might be a reason now that they could call in, and where they would have hesitated before. And so I've had, some people that were not happy with, like, the newspapers or TV stations talking about these cases because they didn't get our permission. And it's like, we don't own these cases. These are, how do you think I did my research? I went through all of these archives and found information that other reporters had done from decades past. And then through the obituaries, where I was able to track down the family members, talk to them, and then add additional information. But they felt that we should be getting credit. And I'm like, we're getting credit. They're showing a picture of our website page,
Yeah.
And some people were more interested in a business card than it's. I think a lot of people have found out it's a lot of hard work, but there are a few people behind the scenes that do an incredible amount of work. And one of them, I consider her like my best friend, and her name is Carol, and her sibling is a cold case, and she has just, she put her own writing, like I did, on hold just for cold cases. And when I had to take some time off, she stepped in and was posting like the cold case anniversaries on Facebook, and she got to know a lot of the victims' family members as well. And so, but the biggest problem is finding the time to train other people to come on board. And, Carol pretty much knows how the whole thing runs. But there's so many different aspects of it. And there's things that one cannot put on the site. Because like when I talk to a law enforcement official, whether it's the state or local or federal, they will sometimes tell me some things just so I have a little better, way of writing the article. But they tell me, no, but you can't include that particular fact.
Right.
And so
sensitive information.
Yes. And
well, I know in Tulsa, I think one of the reasons we've been so successful is the teamwork of the detectives in particular. But Jason talks about it a lot, about how we don't solve many cases with just purely forensics. It's the teamwork and talking to people and the public's help. And I think that it doesn't matter who's getting credit for solving these cases. They just need to get solved. So that's something I think we were always big on. And Jason, you probably know the number, but there's a great solve rate here in Tulsa, but still yet there's how many cold cases are there in Tulsa roughly? Do you know?
Well, the statistics since 1963, we've had roughly 2,790 homicides. And I'm not just some Rain Man here. I mean, we just kind of calculated this recently. But so we have 2,700 roughly and 2790 homicides since 1963. It's probably actually up to 2795. And out of those, we've solved 87%. But here's the thing, and I've always said this, and we kind of put together some pamphlets that we would hand out at the fair, and I can't take credit for that. It was one of the crime scene detectives that did it. Her name was Margaret Lovell. I'll give her 100% credit for that. But we would hand them out at the fairgrounds, which was awesome, because I think a lot of people, they in some ways they think, oh, I thought that case was solved. Yeah. Or, I mean, really, it's kind of crazy to think that, but people move on with their lives and they just kind of forget about things. If it doesn't personally affect them, then they kind of just move on. But that's what I love about your site, is that actually you could, and I'm not kidding you, Jody, I have immersed myself in your site many a times and found myself in there for hours and just reading about different cases. One of which is what was it? It's probably the most infamous mass murder in Iowa history in Southwest Arkansas. So, say again?
Villisca?
Yes. So that's a family of 8 people that were murdered in 1912. And just to give the listeners an idea what I'm talking about, that's when the Titanic sank. And 8 people, was it 8 people?
There was, I think,
6 kids and the 2 adults.
Yeah,
and 2 of the children didn't.
Were
sleepovers. They were sleeping over.
Yes, the Stillinger sisters.
And it was an axe murder to boot. And theoretically, you could go to that city right now. It's not a city, really. It's just like a blip on the map. It's a small town. But you could go there and tour that house where the mass murders took place in 1912. And what's fascinating, it prompted me to watch a document or a couple of YouTube videos on it. And the people back in 1912, when that murder happened, the town just got inundated with people and they couldn't control it. They had people literally forcing their way into the crime scene and taking souvenirs and all kinds of craziness. And it's hard to believe that was going on. But you tell briefly on that case, because they had some viable suspects, if I remember.
Yeah, there was always, I think the primary suspect was always the preacher, because he had come into town and he was there, and he got on the train to leave. And as he was leaving town, he was telling the people on the train about this, 8 people had just been killed in Villisca. I believe it was the parents and their 4 children, and then the 2 Stillinger girls. And at that time, that information had not yet been released. But then there are other theories. In fact, I have the book by, what's his name? He was the professor, and he signed it.
And I threw you on the spot. I tested you. See, I did that on purpose. I tested you because I just threw. Well, actually, it's the most infamous murder in Iowa. If you didn't know about that, then there's no way you couldn't know about that. But you, I can guarantee you, we could talk for 2 hours about that murder by itself, me and you,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And that's just a quick idea.
And I have not gone to that house yet. And it's just directly south of me now. So
Really? So
yeah.
maybe if I'm up that way, maybe we just need to meet up there and go check it out. I'm not
Yeah.
spending the night there, but I wouldn't mind
Yeah, I
stopping
don't
by
want to
just to
spend
take
the
a
night
peek at
there.
it.
Someone
Heck
just
no.
recently bought that from the longtime owners. It was
Yeah.
just recently sold to an organization that's like a TV,
Okay.
some media organization.
Yeah, if I had a show or something like that, I think that'd be a cool place to go to. I mean, it's not a cool place. Listen, let me rephrase because I'm gonna have people going, "What? He said it's cool." No, it's not cool. But I work in the world of murder. I mean, it's kind of a fascinating story, and I just think it would
Yeah.
be interesting to take a walk through. I wanted to say, so let's talk about real quick. Amanda, throw up that missing person case. This is probably it's one of the most famous missing person cases, and this is Johnny Gosh. And what's if you didn't know, Johnny Gosh is the first child to be put on a milk carton, period. And it was from Iowa, West Des Moines. What tell us a little bit about this case, if you could, Jody.
Yeah, he went out to deliver the newspapers that morning, and his dog had gone along with him, and not a single newspaper got delivered. And it wasn't until the subscribers started contacting the register, and they knew their paper boy, Johnny, and they called the Goshes and said, "Where's our newspaper? We should have had it by now." And so then John Gosh went and found the red little wagon, and still with all the papers in it, and his son was gone. The dog, they said, had gone home on its own, and it was investigated. There have been so many different suspects, or persons of interest that have been named in the case. And then, of course, there's lots of videos out there that, his name escapes me right now, that he's really Johnny Gosh. And I don't know about that. I don't think that's
Right.
true, but I do believe, just based on that time period and what was going on in Omaha at the time, that I do believe that he was abducted for the purpose of, for that sex trafficking, child trafficking.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that. My wife has always been cautious, especially when the kids were little, but and just almost fascinated with that angle of society and just suspicious of a lot of stuff. Have you dug into that much? And what do you think? Why do you think he's maybe involved with that?
I think it was because of his age, because at that time period, that particular group that was involved in this, they were more into, like, around the 12-year-old males. And
Okay.
how some different people are, like young girls or teenagers or whatever, but it was the most that was in demand in that particular area around Omaha at the time was males in that age group.
And by the way, that's not the only child that's been abducted that was around that age, if I'm not mistaken. There's like
Right.
two or three other cases in the in Iowa, right?
Yeah, Eugene Martin was 2 years after him, and the third case, I don't think that was a case of where it was the sex trafficking. I believe something else happened to him.
So what's this thing cost for you to operate? I mean, because we talked earlier off air, and you were talking a little bit about, you do get donations and stuff, which I was shocked, and Ronnie and I were both shocked at the low number of donations that you actually get for this. This is like encompassed your life, has it not?
Yeah, it has pretty much. I had two of it's same agency, Fletcher and Company, which they've now sold out, and they are, They are, the firm is, I should know this off the top of my head, but it's a production company. It's huge, where they represent actors, artists, musicians, authors, but they wanted my memoir, and they wanted it quite badly. I didn't want to write a memoir that much. I preferred to write a novel. But I had a series in mind that I wanted to either do as a book series or like a TV series. And I had sent them the information on that, and they were both interested. But they wanted the memoir first. And that at that time, because I know a memoir just encompasses a certain period of time in one's life. But mine had become really kind of awful at a point, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about it. And, because I'd gotten breast cancer, and there were some things that went wrong, and I ended up having other surgeries. And it was like, I don't want to include all that stuff. I wouldn't even post it on Facebook. I finally let Carol on, because people were saying, "Where's Jody?" And they all thought I had taken a break, but I hadn't. I was always still working. I was just adding more cases to the site, but she was posting the anniversaries on Facebook. But we were going to do that, and I just kept putting it off, telling myself, "No, it's not good enough." And Lisa was saying, "You don't have to edit it. Just send it to us." And I just, a normal memoir length would be around 80,000 words, 90,000. That's good novel size, about medium size. And my memoir is 120,000 words long right now. I knew I would have to edit a lot of it out, but it was like the cold cases always, like, no, I don't have time to work on the memoir. I've got 5 new cases I have to get added to the site. And it was just kind of like the cold cases just kind of took over everything.
Yeah. And somebody could donate to you if they wanted to, right? Just reach out to Iowa Cold Cases and so forth. I think I'm almost embarrassed to even say it, but basically you get how many hits per month onto that site?
I don't really keep track of the hits. I keep track of like the visitors and the page views. And I know that we're getting, and we have been for some time, it's like 250,000 page views per month. And out of the new users versus, because you have your visitors, and then, what do they call it? The original, like they're the first time they've ever been there. And that's like about split in half. And so about half of the viewers have been there before, and half of them are new. But yeah.
How much in donations are you getting a year? I would think you would get a ton of money with 250,000 page hits a month.
It's around $500 to $750 a month. In fact, on the website, I do have where it says donate, and then you take it. It goes to that page where one can donate. But then I have the people who have donated, and I list all. I don't put the amounts they've donated, because to me, if someone donates $25, that's no different than if they donated $250, because that's what they could afford. And so I have a list of every person that's ever donated, and if they was okay to use their city, then where they lived. And then I list, although I didn't have to count the first 5 years, because I started the site in 2005, but then we incorporated it in 2010. But I still included from 2005 forward. And there was the 1 year, I believe it was 2015 through 2016, that we actually went above 2,000 in 2015, because I did there was a year-long, it was a 3-way partnership between the Des Moines Register and the Iowa Newspaper Association and Iowa Cold Cases, and where normally when there's a cold case and it's published in the daily in that area, but what they were doing, it was called Gone Cold, Iowa's Unsolved Murders, and they listed this same murder in every single daily paper across the state on the same day, on a Sunday. And the weeklies were also invited to participate, any paper that was a member of the Iowa Newspaper Association. And so people did donate, some, because at that time, because no matter where they lived, if the murder occurred in Sioux City, Iowa, it was showing up in Sunday's paper, like over in the Cedar Rapids Gazette and stuff. And then the weeklies would run whatever story ran on Sunday, they would run it on their weekly, like Wednesday, Thursday day. But we
say what I just came.
Go ahead.
I just came up with a great idea, actually, Jody. Well, Iowa Cold Cases, and then a little subsection, a drop down, Detective Jason White's Cold Cases from Oklahoma. A little subsection. No, I'm just kidding you.
Yeah, well, I have put different things on the site, where I promote them. At one time I had, and I don't know why that's not there now, but the Sioux City Journal, where I used to work, and they had a page that was just for crime, and it was called just like the airport name, SUX, SUX, but that's the name of the airport, SUX. And then, but it was SUX 911. And that page on the Sioux City Journal was dedicated just entirely to crime. But then in their upper menu bar, they had a link to Iowa Cold Cases. And I had a link back to them on my site. And I don't know, I switched to a different theme, and I don't know what happened, but I still have some of this stuff on there, but not all of the partnerships that I've had with people.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned you talked to some law enforcement officials and they've given you some information to help you post it appropriately. Do you have a fairly good relationship with the cops throughout Iowa? And to follow up on that, do you know how many cases your site has helped solve, or at least push forward? I
think I do have quite a good relationship with law enforcement at all, from the local to the federal level, because I can be trusted. I know, and it's like the same when someone sends me information. Yeah. If they tell me this is not to go, this is between you and me, it's not going anywhere else. And they know that, because if I told someone, then they would tell someone, and it would eventually get back to that person. And,
right.
But they know they can tell me things and that I will not repeat them. And the other question about helping solve the cases, I get asked that question a lot, where people will say, so have you ever solved any cases? And my answer is always the same. I personally will never take credit for solving any of the cases. All I have done is I've done research. I've talked to the victims' family members, the original investigators, if they're still alive, current investigators. And I put that information out on the victim's page. And often that will bring, people in and have them, it might lead to some more information. And other times it's strictly the law enforcement running the DNA through again, where it's hitting a match this time, and with genetic genealogy. But I've had several people that have told me that I don't care what law enforcement says, you are the one that got this case solved by putting it out there, And
well, and you probably did. I mean, literally.
Did the law enforcement people reach out to you so you could take that case off of your website, or put a little update that people know?
Oh, believe me, when one gets solved, it's like if there's an arrest made, I'll either know in advance it's coming, because either a family member of the victim or law enforcement will give me a heads up. But if they don't, then I will get like 20 emails and comments all over the website. Oh, they've made an arrest in this case,
Okay.
like with Michelle Martinko, I knew, you know, something was coming. I had talked with investigator Matt Denlinger, but the other ones, like in Sioux City, Tony Canfield case, and there was another one that had been originally considered suicide, Holly Ray Durbin, and her family members wrote to me, her sister mainly, and was like, my sister wasn't killed, or she didn't commit suicide. I mean,
Yeah.
her boyfriend killed her, and she wanted me to put the case on the site. Well, this young girl was involved with the Humane Society, and she and her grandmother had helped nurse a injured deer back to health. And so I got these photos of her, and her brother, who was a veteran, had gone missing in Alaska. But I put it all together and put it on the website that it was a suspicious case. And considering that the gun was found in a shotgun, no less, in the wrong hand, you know, and there was no residue on her hands. But that one sat there only about a year and a half, 2 years. And then a new county attorney got elected. And he's like, we have a cold case in the county. And he looked into it right away. And like that, it was, they brought because they knew who it was, family knew. But the questioning and stuff, and he went to trial and was found guilty, and he's now serving life behind bars.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, and that's just another example of, you got to just keep pushing forward. I think, Jason, it seems like there was 4 cold cases you and I worked together on that we were able to make some arrests on, and some of them were, I mean, that one was from 2008 or 9 or 2007. 2007. You just never know where some good information is going to come from. And
no, but you got to, here's the problem with it is that I think that a lot of departments, and it's not really, I don't know what it is. I mean, we're undermanned all across the country. And I think a lot of departments, it's just not front and center. And it's almost like a battle just to keep that unit manned. And I've said for years, I'm like, you have to man a cold case unit. You can't. It's a media nightmare if you were to not have a cold case guy. And in reality, you really need 2 people minimum, just because you got to have the ability to go out and actually follow up on leads. And if you don't have that, I think you're really up against the wall. And
that's right. A lot of them just don't have the resources. And then even if they start working on a cold case, then there's another homicide that occurs, and then or some drug bust or whatever, and they're pulled away from working on that case.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I dealt with on that one, where you have to have the support of the administration also. And you and I weren't assigned a cold case when we were working together, but there was that one, and maybe I talked about it before in another episode, but we had some information about a deal out in Colorado, and the chief was super supportive. He's like, well, go get a plane ticket, go out there and talk to him, because if the information is there, you got to go get it before it disappears, or someone changes their mind. So again, it's just, if some information comes out, especially on these cold cases, you gotta hop on it and start looking into it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else too. A lot of people think, they have those playing cards that they hand out in prisons. And I could put a case or 2 on there, and I know who to contact to put a case. And some of the cases are the ace of spades or this or that, because it's that much more of a higher profile case. That's kind of how they do some of those cases, really.
Right.
But the success rate of those, which was really shocking to me, was like super, super low. You would think that these inmates playing cards all the time, reading them. Yeah, it's pretty low. It's super low. It's a lot lower than what I can't give you this statistic, but I can tell you this, not off the top of my head, but I can tell you that it's relatively low. But it's one of those things that, why not do it? The deck of cards, I think it costs like maybe 50 cents for them per deck, and then they sell them to the inmates for like $2 or $3. So it's well worth it, and you never know. And I think I remember seeing something like in Florida where they've only had a handful of cases, and I could be wrong. I just have heard somewhere that they had a really low rate on that. But you have to do something, and that's why I'm so adamant about it, and that's why I run my mouth about it all the time.
Why do you think that is? Because even if that a certain victim is not on one of the cards, there's going to be an inmate that's like, oh, well, they might not be in this deck, but I know of this case.
Well, I think that
What?
a cold case, in my opinion, is cold for a reason. And and I can go to the Ronnie asked me how many cold cases do we have in our room? Well, we've got approximately 300 that date back to 1968 that are specifically in that room. I'm not even talking about each detective's cold cases that they have individually, because I have cold cases of my own that once you get a case, it stays with you until you retire or you leave the unit. That doesn't go towards the cold case room. You just keep it. So until you leave. And I think that what happens is that some of those cases that are in that cold case room have been some of the most brilliant minded homicide detectives over the years have looked at some of those cases, and they're cold for a reason. Nobody's talking, or this happened, or whatever. But it definitely needs looking at. And I'll tell you the other thing real quick, and I'm kind of monopolizing this for just a quick second, but I will say this. I think I'm obviously I talk a lot. So one of the things that and I'll tell you something. I think that one of the things that we really need to tap into in this world is really social media, and putting like little 2-minute clips about a specific cold case. I tried that in Tulsa, and I won't even get into that story, but basically that is like doing a 20,000 person canvas, and it just needs to happen. I think that's what people do. They look at their phone, they get a little 2-minute clip, they see a different thing, and it gets them thinking about things. And that's really what needs to happen.
And another thing I would add to that is you when we worked together, you were always telling the victims when we would go do the notifications that, hey, there's no guarantees that we're going to solve this case. And that's something that holds true, whether it's Jason White working the case, who's worked hundreds and hundreds of murders, or the brand new homicide detective who has one murder under their belt. Just because Jason's worked so many, that doesn't necessarily mean the next case is going to get solved.
Right.
And along with that, you have, I would say there's probably a lot of those cold cases that we know who did it, but there's not enough to prove it to make an arrest. And I think that's maybe something that gets lost a lot of times too. And it doesn't help the families necessarily or society in general, but sometimes it's just people, like Jason said, won't talk, witnesses move, die.
That's right. And then they tend to blame the police that like they're not doing their job, when the fact is the witnesses, they say that's not my job to solve it. It's the police's job. Well,
right.
The police's job is interviewing people, and finding out what they saw. And
and I'm going to let everybody in on a little secret. Everybody that's listening, and let this go viral. The cops generally solve cases from getting out from behind their desk and knocking on doors and talking to people. And Ronnie and I have done that, and we have went out there and just kind of were almost nuisances to some of these people, and we would not let them forget about us. And I can think of a couple that we were just constantly bugging them, and they were like, all right, already. I'll tell you, leave me alone. But it was cases that we couldn't sleep about. I mean, we just could not go to sleep at night knowing that this case wasn't solved.
And I will add that we weren't picking on them or wanting these people to make up stuff. I just want to make that clear. It's, hey, there's no way you don't know something, because we know you were there, or people have told us you were there. And over time, finally, the heat gets off of them a little bit, and they're willing to, it's been 2 years, or it's been 6 months, whatever the time frame happens to be. And it's like, okay, I'll tell you what's up now. And so, it's just, you just have to keep at it. But I guess I would like to transition back a little bit to your website. Jason's talked about wanting one here. If somebody was wanting to start one, what would be your first recommendation or best recommendation of, hey, how do you get this rolling and make it as successful as yours has been?
I would want to find some type of a content management system that is similar to what I had when I was working with juvenile court services, where, like mine, I have all the different categories set up, but then I go in individually and like add the page to, let's say, Mason City and Cerro Gordo County, and then the rewards page, and then the 70s page or whatever. But I would like it where there's just one big rolling document, and you the drop down menus, you fill in the information, and then you can add the photos and stuff where appropriate, and put the taglines on them, and choose which of all of that information you want posted on the page. So when there's a change to be made, like if there is an arrest and it's no longer cold, I keep those cases on the site because of historical purposes, because people are still going to be looking up what happened with the Michelle Martinko case, and Maureen Farley, recently. But something that is easy enough to run where more people could be employed to help out, because you don't have to explain to them. You have to go to this page and do this, and this page and do that. And just...
All right. I love it. Listen, Jody, we're going to have to wrap this up really quick, because we're 54 minutes, honestly. Hey, you were a little nervous before coming on here, I think. See how fun that was? This has been fun.
Yeah. I know. I did one that was 2 hours once, and it was like bingo, and it was gone.
Yeah. And I'm going to encourage everybody that's been watching, check out jodyewing.com. And
that's so outdated, because I've hardly had time to even mess with my own website.
All right. Well,
that's the what do they call it? Before cold cases.
Well, hey, I've got a jasonwhite.com, I think, but it's not even up and running yet, but I'm working on it. But listen, go there, go to iowacoldcases.org. You can reach her there. You can get in contact with her. I just know from my personal experience, when we talked 10 years ago, you were willing to help me in any way, shape, or form. And meeting people like you walk the walk, you will help people do something like this, and you do it. This is your life now. So I cannot thank you enough, Jody, for joining us here. We may have you come on down the line, because honestly, maybe there's some other stuff that we can talk about in reference to perhaps a cold case that just really needs the attention, and just absolutely love it. Ronnie, you got any final comments?
I just appreciate what she said. And I'd like to say, I see some of the comments about people tuning in a little late. Just keep in mind, Jason posts this stuff, a link to it, so you can catch up on all the stuff you missed. But yeah, check out Jody's the website, and if you know of anything about any unsolved murder, no matter whether it's Iowa or Michigan, Oklahoma, to steal one of Jason's lines, do the right thing and just reach out, call a Crime Stoppers line, do something, because the families of these people deserve some answers, and society would be better off with some of these people locked up.
Yep, that's it. Next week, we've got to really hang around, Jody, because next week, I want you to tune in, because we're going to have an exceptional guest also. It's going to be Alexis Gage, and she is a young lady that is a medical examiner investigator from Oklahoma City office of the Oklahoma Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and she's going to talk about PTSD and her experiences there. It's going to be fascinating. We have got to run. I will put up an ad real quick. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having me.